All right, what is going on, guys? It is time for another episode of the Chasing Waypoints podcast. Man, has it been a few weeks? If you guys have been tuned in, and you know it's been since what, April 26th, I'm looking at right now, is the last time we did an episode, and way too much time has gone by. We are literally almost halfway through May, and there's been, the rally hangover is over. Sonora Rally is done with. The Norra Rally is now done with. And, well, today's guest, we're going to be talking a little bit about that. It has been an absolute journey for a lot of these guys, and a select few of them decided to double down on the rally raid side of things and running both the Sonora Rally and also competing in the Norra Mexican 1000. So today we're going to be talking to Mike Johnson, RallyComp creator, and most recently putting the Kove rally bike through its paces, not once down the peninsula, but twice, or at least the equivalent of it. Sonora Rally and then the Norra Rally. So we're going to talk to him here in just a few minutes. But first, let's talk a little bit about what has been going on and what are we getting ready to do. We've got rally months coming up, lots of them. We've got the Kota Rally coming up. Then you've got the WTF. Then you've got Baja Rally School coming up. You have the Cold Start coming up, and you have, of course, the Baja Rally at the end of the year. And then we start all over again. And it is going to be time for the Dakar. So a lot going on, a lot coming up, and absolutely excited. We've got a lot of stuff. I'm finally reaching out, getting that calendar going, and we're going to be talking to a lot of guests, doing some more recap shows. Jacob Argubright, we got him going. He's racing today, doing the Hare and Hound series. And so we weren't able to get him in total last minute, right? If you guys heard the episode, we talked to him, Luke Valentine of Peace Adventures. Want to do a little bit more information with him and talk about what they are doing and what their program is about. So we got a lot coming up. Wolfie, I got to catch up with him, man. It has been a few months. So a lot going on for sure. Let's turn on the party here a little bit. Let's see if our boy Mike is ready. He is ready and waiting for us. But yeah, that is, I mean, we got so much going on. Now it's time to just figure out, what are we going to do with all this time off? How do we get it so we can go? How do you guys go to all these rallies and take all this time off and are able to do this? That's what I want to know. Maybe I'm messing up the recipe. I got to do something. I need Spotify to cut me a check. They're like, you know what? We like your podcast so much. Why don't you just do that full time for us? I don't know. Maybe we need more listeners. Have you been sharing episodes? What's your favorite episode? Who should I talk to next? Who should be the one? If you guys haven't already heard, I am still getting a ton of compliments and a bunch of stuff of people that enjoyed the episode with Mo Hart and his tale of the 2023 Dakar Rally. So that was really, really awesome to hear. If you guys haven't heard that episode, you absolutely need to rewind and go back and listen to it, because it was definitely worth the listen. It was a little bit longer of an episode, but it was really, really good to hear all of these, tales and all of these adventures and things that you don't know, that we don't know about, sitting stateside about the Dakar. So that was really, really awesome. I really enjoyed, speaking to him about it. And then also, seeing him out at the SoCal Rally for that adventure. It was absolutely awesome. So let's see if we can get Mike queued up here. And we'll get this. I'm doing it totally live. We're just going to straight up jump on him here. Let's see. See if we can get him. Got it ringing.
Hi, Victor.
Hey, Mike. How are you, sir?
Very good. How are you?
Yeah, doing well. I'm trying to remember what it's like to be on the mic. It's been a minute.
It's been a while, huh?
Yeah. So, are you fully recuperated yet?
Not quite. I think it's going to be another week or so, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit of
licking my wounds a little bit. That was a pretty long adventure.
Yeah. 2 adventures.
2 adventures back to back. Yep. Yep.
So that was pretty crazy. I didn't find out. I didn't find out until after the rally how this all went down. You were only slated to run the Sonora Rally.
Correct. Yep. The plan was for me to ride with Kove for for the Sonora Rally, I had mentioned to them that, it might be cool to do the Norra Rally afterwards, but they weren't too hot on it. And then as the race progressed, I had an injury a couple months before, and I wasn't sure how I was going to be, so I didn't push the issue too much. And then as we neared the end of the Sonora Rally, I was feeling pretty good, so I decided to try to put the pieces together and put in an effort for the Norra as well. There were a couple other guys from the rally that were going to head down and do the two events back to back. Matthew Glade and Matt Sutherland, so they're both buddies of mine, and I just put the pieces together and made it happen.
Nice. Yeah, that I was very surprised afterwards. But I mean that's good. And I mean, Sonora Rally. Let's start there. What was the rally like for you? How did that go? And then aboard a new bike that you had zero time on.
Yeah, well, I didn't get any time on the bike. The bikes were all brand new. There were 4 of them. They were the first rally versions of the Kove imported to the U.S. And they just arrived maybe a week or 2 before we went to the rally. The bikes arrived just right out of the crate, and I didn't get. I was supposed to go test ride it the day before the prologue, and when we went out to the test track, we were busy working on the bike. We got there a little late, and it was closed, so we unloaded the bike on a dirt road. I drove up and down the dirt road a couple times, and that was all I got to ride it before the event started. So, yeah, brand new on the bike when it started. But I got comfortable with the bike real quick. The bike works really good. And the event was quite a bit rougher than normal because we were behind I was riding in the national class, and we had the FIM bikes and FIA cars ahead of us. So the track was pretty defined, which meant not a lot of navigation, which is usually an area where I tend to shine. And then the course was really rough as well. So a little different event than what we'd seen in the past. And because of environmental issues, just a couple weeks before the rally began, the Mexican government pulled a lot of the dune sections away from the event. So there weren't as many dunes as we would normally see.
Yeah, in talking to Darren, I found that out, and I was pretty bummed. I mean, that was kind of a low maneuver. I mean, we won't get too far into the exact feeling of that happening, because that was pretty bad, I think, on their part. Especially, this isn't the first year that this event happens, so it was a bit rough for them to do that at the last minute.
Yeah, so they had to redo all the routes, which really made them scramble, but also it took away the real essence of that event is the dunes. I mean, that's what that event was built around, and that's what everybody knows it for and everybody expects. And unfortunately, it got taken away at the last minute. So hopefully, next year they can work more on that and get that ironed out and get the dunes back in.
Yeah. I hope so. I had heard rumor that even like once the event was underway, that they were saying that they had kind of rescinded their or thought twice about their decision, and were saying, well, maybe it's not so bad. Well, the ship has already sailed. You can't create a new stage mid rally.
Yeah, although I do know, I was talking to Scott Whitney as the event went on, and he was, kind of spur of the moment. Darren told him to get those routes, I think on the last day, routes that they had going through the dunes, try to potentially revive those, but then in the end that didn't happen. So I don't know all the reasons, but I do know that was a possibility at one point.
Yeah. Well, and it's such a bummer because, yeah, like you said, I mean, everybody knows the Sonora Rally for, the terrain and the dunes and what they do out there. And it's, to me, I'm used to seeing all the road books, when tracking them via the RallyComp system, it's always, okay, they're at Kino Cross, or who's at Kino Cross because I got somebody down here that needs some help, or whatever it is. But it's always seeing Kino Cross. The swing set, I think, that's out there is another area, like all these like little monuments and stuff that are out there that, these guys that flew halfway across the world didn't get to experience.
Yeah, really unfortunate. And I know everybody had expectations that it was going to be a big dune event, and unfortunately, yeah,
and didn't
go there.
Didn't go.
But it was still a lot of fun. I mean, still most of it was sand. I mean, we were still on, sandy tracks. We did hit some dunes. The dunes we hit were super difficult, very, very soft, and just hard to get through. Some of the harder dunes I've seen out there. I think they had to route us through some dunes, the dunes they could that weren't the typical dunes that we would see out there. Typically, the dunes in Sonora are pretty well packed. As far as dunes go, not super difficult, but these that they ran us through were pretty difficult because they were so soft.
Mm. Yeah, I had heard that they were shorter than normal, not as tall, so there really wasn't like a lot of speed and being able to carry speed and flow through them. They were just it was just a chunky progression through them is what I heard.
Yeah. Yep. That describes it pretty well.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a bummer. Well, hopefully, for next year they'll have all this stuff sorted and they won't pull this, last minute. And I saw the stuff that they were using to create the road book, and it's not easy to just jump back in and say, okay, here's the route, here's the notes. It looks very time consuming to what they do.
Yeah, and it was a combination of to make both the data for both the national and the FIM class was a little more complicated than usual because the FIM had come in and done all the road books, and typically and they were using a different software. Typically, they would use Rally Navigator, and that's integrated real well with the RallyComp, and that wasn't the case this year. So Scott Whitney jumped in, and I helped him, and some other people helped to manipulate the data to get it in the format we needed to support the national class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which was, there was a lot going on for you leading up to the rally, right? On the RallyComp side of it, to get all of this ready?
Oh, yeah. So prepping all the rally comps, designing our, the latest firmware, getting all the units updated with the latest firmware, getting all the personnel in place. And then fortunately, it was nice that I didn't have to worry about, typically I'm doing that and putting together my own race effort. But in this case, I was riding for Kove, so they pretty much handled all that side of it. So that was actually some relief from what I would normally do.
Yeah. Not having to do bike prep and all of all the other stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So, for a minute, let's talk about the RallyComp side of things before we get to the ride, right? Everybody wants to know what it was like with the Kove. But what does typically go into like on the RallyComp, on the design and everything? Because there were some new versions of the RallyComp that were out this time at the event. Different case, I believe, some different things going on.
Yeah, so we just introduced the Evo version, which I guess we've had it in different phases for about a year now, and I'm just finalizing the core design features of that unit in terms of I'm still doing some hardware design, like you said. I've got a new case. We're injection molding cases. They're going to be a lot stronger, better waterproofing, better appearance. The unit's completely redesigned. A new display, which is great in the sunlight, and basically all conditions you can see this display great. We got higher resolution, so we're able to put more information on the display. We've got a faster processor. We've got wireless capability, Bluetooth capability. So and a lot of features that we haven't even implemented yet. A lot of what I've done thus far is just getting it, the new unit, to function identical to the old unit, and then now we're looking at, we're working on expanding on that because we've got a lot more capability hardware-wise built into the unit.
Nice.
And so leading up to the event, we've got to prep all those units. We're building new units. We're building the inventory of those units. And then, as because you help, we've got a lot of setup to do to set up all the online tracking and entering all the riders and those things to get prep for each event.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it always seems like, you know, there's never enough time, you know, and I mean, what was about the final count of units for the event? Do you recall? That we like 60, 70 units, something like that?
I think it was about 60 for this unit, for this event. Yeah.
Yeah. So to each one of those.
Well, we had about 60, and then we had about 25 org and media units. So it's about more like 85, I think, total.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. That on the tracking side was good. And I mean, having to use the maps and use the trackers and tracking the org vehicles, media, and then all of the competitors and back and forth, that, you know, worked really well. There was a few people we won't name in the room that were very impressed with the system, but they didn't get access to it.
And thank you for all your efforts, Victor. You've been a great help throughout the years. You know, for those that are listening and don't know it, Victor is one of our main tech guys, helping RallyComp at events and you know, helping with online tracking. Setting up the system, you know, issuing units, his dad as well. So, you know, Victor Sr. helps a lot on the ground with the RallyComp. So I really appreciate everything you guys do.
Yeah, of course.
It's a great relationship throughout the years, and hope it continues.
Yeah, I know. I still remember I asked Mauricio for a sticker, and next thing I know, I'm race director at Baja Rally, and then I'm working with you on setting this stuff up.
Right, yeah.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's been really good. And I mean, to me, at least the personal experience, I'm just really amazed with how accurate the GPS side of it is, and riding, you know, that was something, I don't know that I shared the feedback with you, but when I was out at SoCal Rally, just using it as an odometer, how spot on this thing was in coordination with the road book, even though the two of them have nothing to do with each other. Nobody from the org programmed the RallyComp. I didn't program it, and the RallyComp team didn't have any input on the road book. And to see how well it lined up and to not have to make adjustments all the time I just was amazed by that, considering I had other hardware on board that I was kind of struggling with. That is one and the same. They were both using GPS signals. Nothing was wheel driven, anything like that. So the accuracy was really, really awesome to see that actually in person live.
Yeah, so I mean, that's one thing about the RallyComp. It is a full navigation device. It's got you know, odometer, speedometer, cap, just, you know, like any other, or I guess more than most navigation units that you might buy on the market, and it does work really, really good. I mean, the odometer is usually spot on. So typically, when we're running a rally, there's an odometer reset built into the system where when you get to waypoints, it'll reset the odometer. But like I used the RallyComp at Norra, which of course I didn't have any waypoints in there, no odometer reset. And yeah, it was amazing how accurate it was. I always use the RallyComp as my primary odometer at every event. And then, also Matt Sutherland was running the RallyComp for his navigation system on his bike in Norra as well. So yeah, I was really impressed. Even though I developed it, I don't always get to run it for thousands of miles, especially on a route that doesn't even have waypoints loaded. And yeah, the odometer is just super accurate.
Yeah. That is totally awesome. And what's really cool, like that I enjoyed and I thought it was really interesting is like being able to run other things like an ICO or run an RNS unit literally side by side with the thing, antennas, and they completely work separately of each other. You know, one works fine, the other works fine. Like there's no interference between them. There's no nothing. I mean, so whatever you've done on the RallyComp side of it to get that package going has just worked. Like now that I've actually used one.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, now that I've used it for, you know, put some serious miles on it behind one. It was funny because I was always on the other side of the table, you know, working and helping manage the units, but never actually ridden behind one. You know, now doing the instruction video and then actually doing the SoCal Roadbook Rally and watching it in action and actually using. I mean, that thing kept me from getting lost. So it's pretty awesome to see. And and the fact that it just, you put it there, you set it up, you run all the cables, you do everything you need, and it just, the thing works, and it doesn't care what's surrounding it. If there's a little plastic, because I was doing the Gucci stuff, right, trying to protect it and doing all of these things, and it just worked, and didn't cause any issues with any of the other NAM equipment.
The RallyComp is really reliable. And back to the odometer. So there is an algorithm that's built in for the odometer in there that I've tried to do everything I can to make it as accurate as possible. I don't know if other units have algorithms in there that are, basically looking at the data that's coming from the GPS and doing some level of manipulation to make sure that the distance that you're actually going gets logged very accurately. But that's one reason that it's so accurate.
Yeah, this thing was down to the hundredths. Well, I would look at the road book, I still remember one of the notes. I'm coming around and there's supposed to be like a little corral, but it's like a campsite. And as soon as I get into the corner, I glance down, it literally right to the 10th. And I had not adjusted it anytime I had to adjust the odometer on it was because I purposely had cut a corner. I purposely did something where I knew that it was going to be off because I had either taken the long way around something or taken the short way around something. But once I was back on, I would adjust it. The thing was just on down to the 100th, which is, I think some people don't ride hundredths. I think a lot of people ride tenths only.
I ride tenths typically, unless it's a really tight book,
Yeah. So I was
that's interesting that you were all the way to the hundredths and it would do.
That's my OCD. It's already caught me out. I've already gotten lost, figuring out, like looking at that thing. Okay, now I'm on target. And as I blew by the corner, I was just way too close.
So. Well, you got to anticipate a little bit and slow down. I'm bad about that sometimes too when I'm trying to go too fast.
Yeah.
Corners.
It's funny how quickly those corners come up.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But typically you're better in navigation. You're better off slowing down a little bit and nailing the corners than you're going fast and blowing by everyone. So I try to focus on that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's this is definitely a slow as fast type sport. And because it's usually the note or the instruction you miss is going to usually cost you a lot more time than if you were riding pin the whole way there. So. Yeah,
that's why it's so impressive that some of those, the super fast guys can ride that fast and still not be blowing all the corners. That takes a lot of skill.
Yeah, I can agree with now riding roads. Yes, absolutely. So. Yep. Okay, so typically when you go to these events, you're on your 501, correct?
I had been riding a 501. Yep, I retired that bike now, but yep, I would ride a 501, or I've got a rally replica I've raced a few times.
Mm-hmm. And so this time around, the 501 was in the trailer or in the van ready to go.
Well, that was a new 450 that I was building. I'm building like an ultra light rally bike. Like I'm going for super, super lightweight.
There we go.
And we'll see how that works out. But the bike, I've got a new RallyComp digital road book that I've got on it, and two RallyComps, and that package weighs, I don't want to say almost nothing, but I mean it's maybe between 3 and 5 pounds, which is very little for a full navigation setup.
Yeah.
And then I've got a bigger tank on it, and that's pretty much the only thing I have on that bike in terms of adding weight. So it's super light, and I've had it out in the dunes, and it works really, really nicely. So
yeah,
I'm going to try going that direction and see what happens.
Yeah, it's funny because after the SoCal Roadbook Rally, I was like, okay, I'm all about this rally light life. I got my roadbook set up, mounted as far onto the handlebars as I can, as close to the axis of the steering axis. I've decided to not go with dual cap and odometer and just run the RallyComp, front and center roadbook, just super simple. I mean, it's not for me, in my case, it's not a racing setup, but it's perfect for verifying road books and doing all of the basic, the basic functions of a rally. So it's cool to hear you that you're working on something like that, like just a real light race, race bike.
Yeah.
So Oh, nice. Woo.
And if I hadn't had the deal come up with Kove, I probably wouldn't have had that bike ready to race Sonora. So it's a good thing that came up. And I mean, I don't know what direction we're going with Kove moving forward, but you know, I'd like to race that bike more. It's a really nice bike. Really, it's very similar to a rally replica, but it seems more nimble. And I mean, I can nail corners with that harder than I can on the rally replica, and I can pound whoops with it, even with 8 gallons of gas. Obviously, not quite as hard as you could with the bike, you know, with a desert bike, you know, but still, you can still do it without it getting unstable. So yeah. It's a nice platform.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. So, I mean, from the beginning, how did was the Kove thing, how did that deal come about? Can we talk a little bit about that, and then the riding experience?
Well, so as I mentioned earlier, the Koves, they're new to the United States. They're a new bike, new rally bike overall. They ran 3 of them in the Dakar this year. I think that was their first exposure at a race, and they all 3 finished. So everybody was pretty impressed with that. I was impressed with that. And then we started hearing that they were going to be released in the United States. So Mike Georgeson started contacting them about becoming a distributor, and they started talking, and you know, he threw out the idea to them that maybe they should come and do Sonora, and he would help support it, and they bid on the idea, and then he also suggested that maybe they, you know, add a American rider to the team, and they liked that idea. So then they started talking about who that might be. They were really concerned about, you know, having somebody solid that they were confident could finish. And so they asked me if I was interested. I mean, I think I've run almost every Sonora, and I've finished almost every Sonora with the exception of maybe 2, I think. So I probably finished more Sonora more than anybody else. I've been there so many times. And then so yeah, they liked the idea, and we moved forward with it, and everything worked out good.
Yeah, you said it, and that was one of the things, like, I don't know how many people know that all 3 of the Kove bikes finished the Dakar with their riders not having road book experience.
Oh, I wasn't even aware of that, but okay. Yeah. So it was pretty impressive that all 3 of those bikes finished the Dakar. So now 3 of us, there was 3 riders on the Kove team for Sonora. Mm-hmm. Sunir from China, Nels from France, and me from the United States. We all 3 finished that event. And then as we were nearing the last few days of that event, I proposed to them that I go, you know, that they provide me the bike and I go race Norra, the Norra rally. Mm-hmm. And they agreed, and I went down and I finished that. And that was on a bike that, you know, had done the back-to-back events and didn't have a lot of prep in between. The events that started one day apart. So we finished Sonora. We took the bike over to Norra, which was tech day. I had to work on the bike, got it teched, did a little bit of prep, you know, change tires, change the oil, clean the air filter, and then started the Norra the next day. So pretty impressive, I think, that the bike made it all the way through without any major issues.
That was something that, to me, that was, you know, the Dakar, and they finish it like, we don't know necessarily the whole story, right? So they're at the Dakar, they got factory support, they got everybody there, they got all this stuff. So there's things that we assume that maybe if they found a broken this, you know, they could have easily replaced it and just made it go through. And so the bike on the surface looks like, it completed with no problems, no issues, no nothing. But now that it's on, I'm going to use the term home turf, right? Where all of the competitors in the US stateside that run these, like, they know these rallies, they know the Sonora terrain, they know the Baja terrain, and the fact that the bike did both rallies, you know, in your hands. And I mean, I know you're very competitive. You're not, you know, it's not like it was a trail ride the whole way. Like you were pushing on it because you ended up with second in Sonora. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Victor with the Chasing Waypoints podcast. Hey, super quick break in the episode. Want to talk about really quick about Spotify for podcasters. If you are interested in getting your story out to the world, starting your own podcast, it is super, super simple. Head on over to spotify.com/podcasters and get all of the information. It is a one-stop shop. You can edit, you can do Q&A, you can do video podcasts, all sorts of different things in one platform. They handle all of the distribution for you, so it is super, super simple and effective. So with that being said, guys, let's get back to the episode.
No, I ended up fourth in Sonora.
Fourth in Sonora and second at Norra.
Third in the Enduro class and second at Norra. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not that wasn't neither of those were a trail ride. I mean, I know you were leading. And actually,
yeah, I've done Norra a couple times before, and this was probably the roughest. Well, not probably. It was the roughest I've ever done. I mean, we run a lot of Baja 1000, San Felipe 250 and Baja 500 course. And part of it, I mean, the whole San Felipe section ended up being on the San Felipe 250 course that they had just run like 2 weeks prior.
Oh, nice.
And that was just super rough. That was unbeknownst to the organizer of the Norra. Apparently, they either moved that course onto where the Norra was running, or didn't realize that that's where they were running the score race 2 weeks prior. So it was super beat up. Yeah. And then as we got south, where it normally smooths out, there were some local races that had been on the same terrain. So that was not all of it was shredded, but portions that we had were just shredded terrain. And yeah, so it really ran the bike through its paces.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I heard a little bit about that as far as the whoops and the terrain and how rough it was. And the bike did, you know, made it all the way around. No mechanical issues, no nothing. The ride, like,
yeah, so yeah, we were supported at Sonora Rally. At Norra, I was not supported. I will say though that one of the things that part of this whole equation was to put all the pieces together, and one of them was you know, having some level of support to haul my stuff and help and bring the bike back after the Norra. And I got a hold of Tim Morton, who's a friend of mine with Baja Bound, and he was pretty full, but he said he'd make room for me, and he did. And those guys are great, you know. You know, there was always something, you know, you're always at a rally, you're always doing, you know, you ride all day, and then you maintain, if you're taking care of your own bike, you have to maintain the bike all evening, you know. Mm-hmm. One day you're changing oil, the next day you're doing bib mousses or changing oil and doing filters. The next day, maybe you're doing bib mousses. The next day, who knows? Always maintenance that you're trying to stay ahead of any issues that could happen. And so those guys helped me out a lot. You know, a couple guys that were there, Kip Usi, really helped me a lot with miscellaneous things. And Ronnie Wilson, you know, he was always there to give me a hand when I was changing bib mousses and stuff. So, nice. Yeah, we had all the support we needed to make it to the end. So,
very nice. Yeah, and in that, I mean, obviously you had to take some time to work on the bike, you know, and look over things and do that kind of stuff. Was there, how is the bike? I mean, is everything like pretty intuitive? You know, is it like the GMs of the world where the drain plug is?
I mean, yeah, it's very close to a Honda. When I got in there, when you look at it on the surface, it looks like it's a KTM. Mm-hmm. You know, you think, oh, that's just like they copied a KTM replica, rally replica, but that's not the case. I found more similarities with the Honda when I started working on it. The clutch is not hydraulic; it's a cable clutch, and it actually feels real nice. And you know, 450Xs, which we raced for years down in Baja, mm-hmm. and Best in the Desert, you know, they have a cable clutch, so I was used to that. And the swing arm looks almost like a Honda. The brakes, I think, are Honda brakes. The clutch, I think, is a 450X clutch. The breather setup, the breather tube setup, and the breather drain are identical to a 450X. So I think there's a lot more similarities with a Honda than anything else.
So it sounds like they might have taken some cues off of, I mean, and it's known in the industry that Honda, it builds some of the most reliable bikes out there. So it sounded like they took some of the cues from them. Yeah,
and that would make sense as well. Yep. Yeah.
Now, one thing I'm curious about, right? It was Malcolm Smith that said if you got $100, 99 of them should go into the suspension. What did you? What do you think about the suspension? I mean, was it something that, send it out, get it revalved, or go find a whole new set of forks and shock?
No, the suspension's great right out of the box. I've actually, I don't know that I've ever had a stock suspension that worked as well as that one did. I mean, the bike is stable, it's level. We didn't have time to spring or work on the suspension in any way, so the bike was undersprung for me. Mm-hmm. So, but it's still, it didn't bottom. I mean, the suspension works really progressively when you hit hard, square edges or anything like that. I think I mentioned before, I could pound the whoops on that thing. It always tracks straight, really stable. So, I mean, they did a lot of stuff right on that bike.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have volunteered myself to go do the Norra after the Sonora if I didn't think that bike was capable of the right fit for me to go do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I mean, it's a big ask. I mean, you're going all the way back, basically back down the way you came, but now on the Baja Peninsula instead of on mainland, all the way to the bottom. So, which is interesting. You mentioned earlier how it was sandier terrain in Sonora, and then you get to the Baja side of things, and now you're in hard packed, silt, rocky, very different. In that case, I mean, some sand, but definitely I wouldn't think like what you came across Sonora.
No, I wouldn't call it sandy terrain. I mean, you get into some washes, but other than that, it's pretty much rocky, silty, just like you described it.
Yeah, and I mean, I there was some stuff that, we won't go too far into it because it's a touchy subject for me about navigation equipment causing interference and that kind of stuff. But you were leading the rally, the Norra, with the Kove, with the last year's winner trying to chase you down.
Yeah, that happened for a couple of days. But when we got into more open terrain,
mm-hmm.
He was on a rally replica 2020 KTM rally replica, and on the straight line and super fast stuff, I couldn't keep up. I don't know that I wanted to keep up with the pace he was going. So
there's that too.
Yeah. So I mean, I always keep my safety in mind. So I was hoping we'd get into some more tighter stuff and maybe some more difficult navigation. They had some complicated navigation on the first day, and I think that's one of the reasons I did so well starting off. But then as we got further south, we got into faster and faster terrain. I won't say the whole thing, but a good portion of it. And the rally replica is a more refined bike. I think it's got maybe a better suspension for the super high speed stuff, and the motor on that thing you just can't compete with.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if there's anything on the market that can compete with that motor on that rally replica. So,
well, I think what's interesting with the Kove thing is going to be, if out of the box the suspension is good, there's going to be people that are going to start tuning and tweaking it and making it theirs, right? They're going to start looking at maybe the race tech valves. They're going to start looking and they're going to start messing with it. So this is just the very beginning of the bike, and then the engine, being reliable, ridden at race pace, 2 times down the peninsula, and then also the Dakar. I feel like the same thing. It's going to be a matter of time before somebody with, that can tune them, gets into it, or they open them up and they start, messing with the parts inside of the thing to basically make it competitive.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. You take a 450X that's like I mentioned, we used to race those in Baja all the time. So, I mean, we would never take a stock 450X out and try to race it. It would be, we'd spend between $5,000 and $10,000 on that bike, turning it into, from a stock bike to a race bike. And because of all the years of experience that Team Honda had and other people racing those bikes, everybody knew what to do. There had been a lot of trial and error and research and development that had gone into that bike, and knowing the things you needed to do to change it from just a stock recreational bike into a race bike. So, I mean, yeah, I suspect the similar thing can happen with this bike as well, and turn it in from what it is now into something totally different.
Yeah. And I mean, I think but
it doesn't have far to go, so that's the nice thing.
Yeah. The springboard side of it. And then not only that, but I mean, you're talking about, well, first of all, rally replicas, if you buy one, are going to be very expensive. I mean, $27K, something like that. And then by the time you get it here, right, now you're talking about a Kove that's already available.
If you can even get one.
Exactly. I mean, I know, it's like one of those things. I know where there are two brand new in a box, never been touched. I think they're 21s or 20s, but they're unobtainium. I mean, the price tag on the things, then to get them all the way up here, then to get them registered over here and all of that stuff. I mean, it's just not worth but then you look at the Kove and just the standard version, you could get 3 of them for the price of one rally replica. And for the most part, I mean, most people listening to the show, most people that go out and get into this, that bike is already more than capable for what they're going to do. So yeah. And I also think there's a market for, that bike in the adventure niche. So that could make a really good platform for an adventure bike. And you would have to touch very little in terms of the bike itself to make it ready. You just have to, add racks and bags and any other goodies that you like to have on your trip. But the bike itself is a really good starting platform. Yeah, and you did mention an adventure light. Yeah, I think that's that's going to be a hot. I think it's KTM's fault. KTM and Quincody for that 790. They kind of kicked off that party. And I think there's some that will either got to that and were like, I was a 500 guy, but then I went to a 790 and not really a 790 guy, but the 500 doesn't have this and that, so now it's like, well, now there's this option, or you could take a 690, which is, that's one of the bikes you have, correct? It's from Lyndon Poskett. I think
701. Yeah. I've got a 701.
Yeah. So there's a lot of options, but none of them are going to meet the price tag and the out of the box of this so far. It's what it's
I've also got a rally replica that I have that I've made as an adventure bike. And it's pretty good, but I'm always concerned if I'm out there and I need parts, what am I going to do? My friend Lyndon has can identify any part available, but he's over in Europe. What if I'm riding and I'm stuck in the middle of nowhere and I need a part now? That's the problem. Yeah. Where the Kove importer, Gary, I'd like to throw a shout out to Gary as well for his support. But he's the importer, and he's got a warehouse in the United States, and he says he's going to be stocking parts and shipping every day. Or he already ship every day. Yeah. He has other Chinese motorcycles that he sells, and he ships every day. So he's going to be carrying the parts, and pretty much anywhere you are in the United States for sure, but I think anywhere in the world probably he can ship parts overnight if needed. So there are going to be parts available, which is always a concern it's always been a concern with any Chinese vehicles, because I know I've heard a lot of stories of people having issues with getting repair parts after they bought one of those.
Well, and it's nice to know already that they're taking a cue from, that's the thing, right? Is the Honda, or you can use it's like, well, you can use, I'll just throw some names, right? Oh, the clutch pack is from a Honda. The rear sprocket is from a Beta. The front fork seals are the same as the Showas. And like, once that knowledge gets out, yeah, you can get the part directly from them. The KTM, I figure that the KTMs are going to be a little bit more specific. Oh, yeah, it's the same clutch as a 450, but the Rally replica uses this that's different. And that one part that's different, you can't get. It's not on the shelf at the local dealers. It's not, it's not something that they stock. So
the brake pads to me look like a 450X. If that's the case, I mean, that's fantastic. You get brake pads anywhere.
Yeah.
So not Kove brake pads, but any brake pads. And the aftermarket industry already has that covered. And then the clutch, you can get a clutch for a 450X. I think the 650 might even be the same clutch. I'm not sure though.
Yeah. I think 7-Eleven carries those too. I mean, they're so popular.
Yeah.
So something that I like, did you change the bars? Was there any ergonomic things that you had to do?
No, and that's another thing. The bike is really comfortable. The bars felt weird to me. They were a different sweep than I would normally use. They felt like they were swept back a little more than I would normally like. Mm-hmm. But once I got used to them, it ended up really comfortable. And the bike overall, the ergonomics, I'm a pretty big guy, I'm 6'2", mm-hmm. and the bike was really comfortable. You always need to put a new seat. I would have liked to have had a new, seat concept seat or something on there, mm-hmm. For the long haul. But you always have to you always have to change your seat on any bike you get if you want to make it really good for long distance. So that's one thing I would have changed. But other than that, no, the bike ergonomically, it's great.
Yeah. Pegs, the peg width. I mean, that's another big one, right? In any of the 500s, any of the normal bikes, the Rally replicas use really wide foot pegs on it. How was that on this one?
It had the wide Rally foot pegs. I've gone to these. I tried out on this new bike that I got. I tried these Fastway pegs with a little wing in the back. That mm-hmm. I ended up loving them. So I would probably put a set of those on there. I haven't figured out what foot pegs would go on that bike. I suspect they may be a Honda, but I did try to put my Fastways on there and they don't match. So it's not they're not KTM. Mm-hmm. They may be their own. I'm not sure. Yeah. But it'd be really nice if like you could stick a Honda foot peg on there,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then it opens up the options. And see, that's the cool part is that if it is that, and they did take cues from it, like if they didn't reinvent the wheel, I guess is the easy way to put it, right? If they didn't go 100%, this is ours, and use something that's more common and available, then that's just going to help the adoption of the bike much quicker. I mean, as it is, I'm sure somewhere there was a whole crowd of people waiting to say, "Ha! I told you this thing was junk." And I think they were all proven wrong.
Yeah, because there were guys, I won't name any names, but there were some guys betting for me and some guys betting against me every day on our team. And the guys betting against me lost, obviously, every single day. And by day 4, I think they quit betting because they didn't want to lose any more money.
Yeah, the cash was getting a little tight. Nice. Well, I mean, that's, I'm seriously thinking about it. It was like, well, it kind of would be nice to have something like that. But then, it goes the same thing. The Gucci side is like, yeah, that's a 2021 Rally replica in the garage. But then on the other side of it, that's also almost $30,000 sitting there. And if I fall and break a windshield, it's going to be 3 weeks or 4 weeks before I can get it. If I scratch a tank, or if I, where with this, if if Gary and the guys are importing that here, then it's only a few states away.
So here's another thing, like it's got a carbon fiber skid plate on it, and it's got a carbon fiber tower. Mm-hmm. And I know the Rally replica, like carbon fiber tower, is like $2,500. Mm-hmm. And I think a skid plate is up in there as well. And I was talking with Gary about how much some of these replacement components cost, and he was talking hundreds of dollars. So I don't know how many hundreds, maybe it's 300-400, whatever, but that's a lot different than 2,500. So
absolutely. And those are, and you're right. I mean, if you go over, those are parts that are literally, I mean, I heard from Mo and some of the other guys at the Dakar that were on the rally replicas from the Boss team, and skid plates are a dime a dozen. I mean, they're going through them. I mean, just like, it's almost like just as bad as gas. They're having to replace them so often, and then the tower, that's very true. I didn't think about that, but yeah, if you do an end over end or even a laydown, just in the perfect combination, next thing you know, you've got a tower in your lap. And at $2,500.
When we raced the Africa Eco race, Matt crashed one day and broke his tower. And between the tower, the main carbon fiber tower, and the other miscellaneous pieces, it was several $1,000s to put that bike back together. So it gets really pricey.
Yeah.
And then finding the parts can be a problem, like you mentioned. So
well, and something I'm kind of curious about. So 6'2", and riding the thing, how was the windscreen? Was the windscreen, what were your thoughts on that? Because that's something, the adventure riders want to know, right? They want to ride behind a windscreen that protects them, and no buffeting in the helmet, which I disagree with. But
so I, you've got to tuck down like any rally replica. They're not made for full protection sitting upright in the wind. But I mean, there were some mornings where it was cold, and some times where I was trying to go, going really fast, and I would just tuck down under the windscreen, and it was definitely sufficient.
Mm-hmm. And riding out in the rough.
Now, the adventure version of that bike has a shorter windscreen. So if I get one of those, I will be putting the rally windscreen on it, which is a little taller.
Okay. Yeah. See, that's what I was going to ask. 'Cause part of the reason that I went with my setup on my Rally Light is putting all the navigation equipment as low as possible, was specifically for that. Is I didn't want I want everything as far away from me, just in case, right? If I'm riding something or hit something, I don't want it to come up and hit me. I've seen plenty of glasses broken on the road book holder, where the helmet hits it. And I've seen that. I mean, it's kind of commonplace. I mean, there's been a few bloody noses that I've seen at other rallies from the same kind of situation. So that's why I was just kind of curious, is like how at your height and versus the windscreen and the nav equipment, like if you have enough room.
Oh yeah, plenty of room. Yeah, no, that's no issue at all. And I'm not one of those guys that smashes into my nav equipment. I don't know what riding position that is that those guys are in where that happens, but I never seem to have a problem with it. I don't know. I must ride a little different than some of these other guys, but
I feel like I
don't have that problem.
The ones that I've seen it are on the rally bikes, and it's typically a shorter rider, or I've seen it more often on rally light bikes that are using handlebar mounts that put the nav equipment up and still, they're still pretty close. So it's up a little bit higher. That's really where I've seen the most of it on a rally replica or a full on rally bike, a KTM basically. Cause you can't get Hondas or Yamahas, but, on the KTM rally replicas, I very rarely see it unless they're a shorter rider. But that's good to know.
But I didn't see any issue with that. It's just like the ergonomics on any rally bike.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, this is creating and really do you know the differences between the rally and the adventure version of the Koves?
I generally do.
Okay.
I could be wrong, so don't quote me on this, but there are actually 3 versions available right now. There is the rally version, which has, the full 12 inches of suspension.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a titanium exhaust. It's got the carbon fiber nav tower. It's got an FUR road book holder.
Mm-hmm.
It's got 2 ICOs, one of the GPS units and one wheel sensor unit, I think is how it's configured, and a Scott steering damper. And if you go to the next level down, that still has the full suspension, but it's got a stainless steel exhaust.
Mm-hmm.
It's got an aluminum nav. It's not really a nav tower anymore. It's aluminum front bracket with like an adventure bike display, kind of like maybe what you would see on a KTM. I've never seen one.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe like what you'd see on a 790 or 890 is what I'm envisioning.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are no Scott steering dampener on that one, but I think it still has all the mounting hardware there that you can buy a damper and put it on. Maybe you got to buy the bracket for the pin.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a short version which has, I think, 1.5 inches or 2 inches shorter suspension travel, and that lowers the bike for guys with shorter instincts. I think it's basically the same as the mid-level configuration, just with 2 inches shorter suspension travel.
Okay. Interesting.
And I don't know if I think those are the only 3 configurations right now anyway. There was talk about another configuration. I'm not sure what that would be, but that may be the middle one may be the one that they were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, this is going to be kind of because I'm wondering, like, okay, if you end up with an adventure version, could you go with a tablet style rally setup for the enthusiast, right? Not racing, but just going out and doing basic road books. It sounds like that might be the option. And I mean, and I'm on the GPX Moto website right now, and I see the price range between $9,000 and $14,000. So it's basically for the 14 grand.
Yeah. So basically, it's $5,000 for the rally version, which has the road book, the full navigation tower, titanium exhaust, and Scott steering dampener. There may be some other miscellaneous things, but if you think about it, I mean that there's probably $3,000 of it is just in that tower with the F2R roadbook holder and the ICOs that are up there,
mm-hmm.
and the fact that it's carbon fiber, and then another $600 or whatever is that Scott steering dampener. Another, I don't know what it costs for the titanium exhaust, but you pretty much, that's the $5,000 right there. And I don't know if somebody's not going to use it for rally racing. I don't know that you'd want to spend that extra $5,000. Matter of fact, I'm looking at maybe doing some adventure riding on a couple of these this summer, and if I can get my hands on them, I'll be looking at the mid-level version.
Yeah, that's I'm looking at it, and I mean, there's they have the comparison, so it's on gpxmoto.com. They have the comparison for all 3 bikes. Yeah, titanium exhaust, road book, carbon fiber tower, steering stabilizer, moose bib foam inner tube, and and then otherwise, minus all of that, stainless steel exhaust and 3 horsepower according to the website. So
so that's mapping. That's a mapping difference.
Yeah.
And we had special mapping in our bikes. They had a special rally race mapping, which I don't even think is the one you necessarily get in that rally bike if you buy it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know. And they do have, on the mapping that I had on my bike, they do have a little work to do to smooth it out,
to get it right.
The transition between the low, medium, and high range.
Mm-hmm.
They've got some work to do there.
Yeah.
But that may not exist in the non-race.
Yeah, the non-competitive
map. Yeah, non-competitive map. Yeah.
But I mean, I bet you we're 90 days away from somebody with a Vortex, that can tune them, or one of the other like AIM ECUs or GET ECUs. And next thing you know, this thing's putting out, 6 or 7 more horsepower than the way it was shipped. And what's nice, this is something interesting that I'm looking on their website is the braking side of it. The rally bike, right? The pro version, right? Has all of the additional stuff, but then you go down to the medium level one that we're talking about, and it has ABS. So typically at least what I've seen, right? You usually have a street bike with and without, and there's usually $2,000 difference higher than, for ABS versus non-ABS. And this actually coming with ABS and still much more cost effective, I think is, I think this thing's a really good we kind of knew it, but now, yeah, it's tough. It'll survive racing environments. And then, the value of it is going to be really tough to beat. I mean, you're in a 250. You could get 250s for about the price of this. It's not even close to one of these equipment wise.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So interesting. So it sounds like you're going to have a couple of these in the garage, hopefully.
I may, yeah.
I'm
still working on it. Still trying to figure it out. Still trying to figure out the racks. Got to be able to put proper racks on it. I'm talking to them about that.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a little rack set up, but I'm not convinced that that's what. Well, not that I'm not convinced. I know that's not what I would need for the kind of riding I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do kind of mix of when I'm adventure riding and kind of extreme adventure, I think they call it, where going over rougher terrain and untraveled terrain, and so I need a really good rack setup that supports the back of the bike and supports the all the luggage that I'm carrying, because I typically carry full camp gear and cook gear and everything in a condensed fashion, but still got everything on there. So.
Yeah, no, and I'm looking at it, and it looks like it's designed more for like adventure light, the rack that's on there. So for those for those playing the home game, if you're into if you have like a giant loop like the Mojave setup, the Reckless 10 from like Moscow Moto or something like that, like a smaller bag setup, like what the Motomedics ride normally, they have that smaller 10 liter per side or 10 liter total. That rack looks like it was designed for that.
Yeah, and that's more. I think that's more of a weekend trip kind of thing, and I think they can broaden their market if they get a rack set up that can handle, people doing longer trips. Because with 8 gallons of fuel, I mean that's a game changer. I'm always having to carry fuel, and it's a pain. So I would love to have a bike that had the 8 gallons of fuel, 300 mile fuel range, something in that, like that. That would be great.
Yeah.
Which my Rally replica will do, but like I said, I'm a little concerned about parts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not.
I haven't had an issue where I got stranded because of parts, but I've had an issue where on my 701 I would have been stranded if I couldn't have gotten parts. Mm-hmm. So, if that were to happen with the Rally replica, that would be a problem.
Yeah, you don't want to do it. I mean, and they are a proven bike, but it's still at the same time, it doesn't matter. Even the most proven and trustworthy motorcycle will at some point have a mechanical, or you never know. It could just be a simple fall, and next thing you know, you need a part, and who knows? So that's not good. But yeah, man, this is they're building an interesting case for these bikes for sure. I mean, they've already got the results, the Dakar, and then backing it up with Sonora Rally and the Norra, what you guys have been able to achieve. And then you're saying that, out of the box, these things are actually built pretty well. The suspension is there, you just, with some minor tweaks to make it quote unquote yours, could be even better, even though right out of the box, it's still good. So yeah, that's going to be interesting. So what's next for you?
I'm taking a break, trying to gear up for, I do a yearly adventure ride with my son, and that's kind of what I've been talking about here, is that I want to get maybe a couple Koves and go out and do some endurance testing. Okay. And that's pretty much it for now. I need to take it easy a little bit. I've been really hitting it hard, getting all the RallyComps ready for events, introducing the new RallyComp, getting ready for events, and I've kind of got a little window here, so
there you go.
Looking forward to that. I'd like to give a shout out to a few people, if you don't mind, Victor.
No, of course.
You're actually on the top of the list. You and your dad, you guys have been great, helping me with RallyComp, retrieving my van for the moment from Ensenada and getting it up to San Diego, and then I arrived and the van's all clean and it's been serviced and reorganized inside. How great is that? So thanks a lot to you and your dad.
Yeah.
Rick Vetter. Rick has helped me a lot with RallyComp. He also came over to Ensenada with me spur of the moment to help me that day I needed to get the bike ready for Norra. So Rick's been a great help. Doug Smith helped me with the logistics on figuring out the whole Norra thing and getting rooms and checking with the right people to get me parts. And he's just a great help. I already mentioned Baja Bound, Kip Boosie, Ronnie Wilson, Gary with Kove FSE. None of that would have happened without him, and also Mike Georgeson for pulling it all together. So thank you all, you guys. I really appreciate it.
Nice. Yeah, all a solid group of guys. I've actually talked to Gary once before. This was back when he was importing the tanks for the KTM 790, the rear tanks. So yeah, really good dude, and I definitely want to pick his brain about these bikes and maybe get him on the show to talk a little bit more about the availability and what the plans are for these things.
Well, he's really engaged in supporting this and doing anything he can to raise people's confidence and stocking parts and getting people on demo bikes. So yeah, Gary's a great resource to learn more about Kove.
Nice. Yeah, we'll definitely pick his brain. But cool. Well, we'll let you get to your prep. I mean, it's Saturday. You shouldn't be working.
Yeah, I should be in the garage.
Yeah, after hearing you, I'm like, oh man, I got to get in there and start, getting my bike ready and at least getting, I don't know. So, do you still have your 790? You still have that thing laying around, or is it gone?
Yeah, I still have a 790. Yeah, it's never really been the bike for me. I've got a bunch of bikes, and when I go out in the garage and I look at all my bikes, and I ask myself, which bike do I want to ride this weekend? That's usually not at the top of the list, so I don't ride it very much, unfortunately. So, I probably need to put a for sale tag on that bike.
Yeah, that might be the. You may or may not have to make some room for a couple other bikes.
Right. Yep.
So,
we'll see.
Yeah. Nice. Well, awesome. Well, get to it. I'm heading to the garage as well, and then we'll catch up later this week. Awesome.
Yep, great talking to you.
Yeah,
Thank
same
you.
here.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mike. See ya. Awesome. So that was Mike Johnson, RallyComp, and Kove. I'm not going to go Kove factory rider, but I think they made a good choice in picking him. Mike has always been very competitive. He's always right there with Rally. Like you mentioned, his navigation skills, he catches guys and is no slouch either. So that is definitely good to see, and for him to say that how the bike has worked, and he's very, can be very meticulous on things and setting things up and how they are. And so I take his word that he says that the bike is good right out of the box and how it felt and all this stuff. I'm surprised, and I think I'll ignore for a moment. I will ignore all of the results of it. And leading the Norra Rally, being competitive down at Sonora Rally and doing all that stuff. I was just going to ignore the placements, right? And just with the simple fact that it made the rounds, it made the lap, it finished the Dakar in front of and in a long laundry list of bikes that did not make it. Proven bikes that have been there for years, that the recipe is there, nothing has changed, and yet these bikes, newcomers with new people on them, new navigation, and the reason that that's important, I think, to bring up in when you're new to navigation, that means mistakes are made. I know these guys were maybe top riders and that, but when you throw them into places that are out of their element, never competing in the Dakar, they're going to take the long way around in the dunes. They're going to force things or do things that you wouldn't typically see from a factory rider or a Dakar veteran, where a rally replica, one of those bikes, is actually designed to do, and it knows. I mean, the engineers behind at KTM know what they're doing when it comes to a bike. They've been using the rally replica setup, which is the ladder frame, not the new MX frame, for years. This recipe has been around for years, and it's a very proven recipe. Now, not taking anything away from the rally replicas, because if I had a chance to have one in the garage, damn right I would have one in the garage. I'd have one like Hector Guerrero, and I would make it look like a Husky rally replica, because, and I definitely do it. But they're unobtainium, And as Mike was talking about, is like, well, what happens if you have a layover, and how do you get an exhaust for it? And how do you get, like, just think of the typical things. How do you replace a tank? How do you replace a windshield? How do you replace the tower? And how do you replace the exhaust? If I didn't already mention that, you know, where do you go to find these parts for these things and to get them stateside so that you can, you know, get your bike going again? You know, never mind some of the other ones, because let's just say, okay, well, they didn't really reinvent the wheel. KTM used a lot of their standard parts in the engine and all the other stuff, and just say that, you know, there's really nothing different about them. How do you get those parts? Where in comparison, now you have a bike that's going to be imported here into the US that's got proven miles on it, right? 4,000 to 6,000 miles at the Dakar, and then another, you know, 2,000 to 3,000 miles here in Mexico and Baja. Or one and the same, right? But, you know, in mainland Mexico, and then also in Baja, and I've seen that bike. Mike Johnson's bike went right back, and I've seen pictures of it. It's now in Ensenada and being ridden by one of the locals, who, in my understanding, is going to be the importer or the dealer in Ensenada, Daniel from Carrera 777. You know, that bike is still being out there ridden. It's not like it's just been dropped off. It's going back to the factory to get refreshed and, you know, to make sure it puts it. No, it's literally the stock bike. So this is going to be really interesting. I mean, there's a newcomer, right? Kove has entered the chat, and now there's a bike that, for the guys that are looking to get into rally, or they're looking to do some adventure raid type stuff, you've got a competitive platform that holds 8 gallons that you're not going to, I mean, you can't do it, guys. I'm telling you right now, you could find a used 690 for about $8,000, and then to do all of the, you know, go to Kit 690 or one of these other companies like Aurora, Raid Garage, any of these guys, and you're going to be signing another check or talking to Visa or Amex or MasterCard about a $4,000 credit card bill to get into a setup like that. Now, still reliable. It's a good setup. I am not absolutely knocking those setups, because they're a proven setup, you know, but now you've got a bike that in its early stages is already being proven. So it's very, very interesting to me to see how this progresses. My understanding is that they're not street legal yet. They haven't been approved, but that doesn't mean I would think that may not mean anything in certain states. I live in California, and we all know that California is very, very strict. When it comes to that, you know, turn signals and all of that stuff, they want it, you know, everything's got to be approved and done. So this is going to be interesting. I think the guys at GPX are onto something, and the Kove is going to be the choice for a lot of people, especially the suspension. You know, to me, that's, I think, one of the biggest things I've learned, you know, in recent years, is actually spending the time and the money on the suspension side of things, and how big that makes an effect on how much you enjoy the bike. And for a lot of bikes, you know, for desert, it's usually turns into, okay, take it apart, got to send it to this, got to do this, got to do that, got to put these inserts, you know, or these cartridges in it. You got to do all of this stuff. And next thing you know, you're ringing up a $2,000 to $3,000 tab with the suspension guy just to get this bike going. Now, granted, afterwards, yeah, you end up with a completely different bike, and it's a lot more fun to ride. But at the same time, now you've got an even bigger bill, where in this case, if you literally just have to take it out, put some springs in it, do some clicker adjustment, and maybe not even revalve it. Maybe all it ends up taking is some springs, some clicker adjustment, a counter shocks, and next thing you know, you're, you know, dialed. How awesome would that be, right? You're $150 set of springs for the front, and, you know, let's just say $400. You're in $400 for a set of springs, you know, another $350 for a counter shocks, $750, and you've got a suspension package for your bike. It's not bad. I don't think that's bad at all, you know. So let's just see. I mean, let's see where this thing goes. And, you know, I'm definitely going to reach out to Gary from GPX Moto so we could talk a little bit more about these bikes and just kind of see what the game plan is, what's available now, what's going to become available, and where we go from there. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Kove, the next big bike here in the States? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. So with that being said, guys, it is time to get to the garage. So remember, it'll make sense when you get there. Enjoy the ride. right, that is the wrap for the Chasing Waypoints podcast this week. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what you heard. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and a bunch of others. Also, follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook under Chasing Waypoints, Instagram, Chasing Waypoints _official, and of course, the YouTube under Chasing Waypoints. Hope everybody has a good week. We will see you guys for the next episode. Remember, shiny side up, and don't forget to tag us. We want to see where you guys are riding and what you guys are up to. Have a great week.